CD and bubble effect. A tricky process, but the results are worth it.
Hello and welcome to BCC Art Studio. I'm Billy, and in today's episode I am going to be showing you how I did the bubble effect on the CD. And I had a few requests to show this, so I'm showing it. Now I did this one a little while ago and well, it's got some bubbles in it, so I'm going to show you how to prep your CD and do the bubble effect. You do have to be kind of careful with this one because they tend to be unlevel, and you do have to watch what you're doing because you will get bubbles in your stuff. So let's get started. So first off, we're going to prep our CD, and I just take a plain pair of scissors and I cut the CD in half. Now you have two halves of the CD, you only need one half. So take the half. Now I use an X-Acto knife, and if you look on the ends here, I don't know if you can see that. If you look on the ends, you'll see a little split between the plastic cover and the back. So what you need to do is take your X-Acto knife and just find that split. And as soon as you find that split, get it open, and you'll be able to take that plastic cover off. You can throw the plastic cover away, and you're left with just the shiny back. Okay, for the next step, you're going to need a piece of freezer paper or wax paper and some resin. So I'm going to put my resin on here. Make sure there's no fingerprints or anything. I'm just going to put some resin on there, about that much. Okay, and then you're going to take your piece of wax paper with the waxy side down. You're going to place this over the top. Now you can smooth it out with your finger or not, but I'm going to use just a plain old acrylic piece of plastic here. I'm just going to set it on there. I'm not going to really move it around, I'm just going to give it a little tap. That should flatten it enough. And take it off of there. Remove your resin paper, and you should be left with a spot of resin. So sometimes it creates bubbles when you pull it off, so I'm just going to torch any spots that I see that are bubbly. And we are going to take some bubbles. So I have this container with bubbles in it. It's about 3 parts soap, 1 part water, and I'm just going to shake it up. To create all these nice little bubbles. I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes, and we will be back. And I'm going to take my bubbles and try to get the small ones. I'm going to take my little scooper here. Now, you don't cure your resin. You don't want it cured. I'm going to take some of these small bubbles and hopefully just place them on there. Hopefully they'll stay. Hopefully I don't get too many big bubbles. And we are going to cure that before they disappear for 2 minutes. Okay, so that should be all cured now. And what you want to do is just take a napkin and just dab the excess bubbles off of there, or any water that may be left on there. Now, you cannot just put your cabochon on top of there, because once you put resin on there and you place it on, it's just going to, the bubble effect is just going to disappear. So what we are going to do is I'm going to take some chameleon mica powder, and this is blue, green, golden. I'm going to take some mica powder and I'm just going to brush it on there really lightly. Make sure I don't have too much. Just brush it on real lightly. You don't want to take away the effect of the CD reflection behind it. I'm just spreading it out nice and evenly. Trying not to put too much on. Now I know my cabochon won't cover this whole thing, but it does. I like to make sure that I cover all the bubbled areas so I can pick the spot that I want. And then you're just gonna hopefully tap and get the rest of that off of there. And then you have your effects. So I'm going to set that off the side so I can clean up my mess. Now it is time to make your cabochon mold. So I'm going to do a heart shape. So I'm going to take my clear hard type, Let's Resin, and I'm just going to make myself a cabochon. And you want this to be level. You want it to be flat across the surface. The flatter it is, the better results you're going to get. And we're going to cure that for 5 minutes. I would like to give a shout out to my amazing channel members, Lynn Keller and Starla Moore. And I also would like to give a shout out to all my subscribers and viewers. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of this community. This is also part of Friday with Friends. Today, you would have seen Johnny Dark, Bill Robertson from Robertson Art, and Mary Kirk from Acrylic Art by Mary Kirk. So, we're going to get started on the CD preparation of placing our cabochon on. So this is going to be kind of a tricky part because you do want to make sure your cells are filled, and you do want to make sure that this sits level. So not everything on here is the same level. So once we start doing the resin part of it, we're going to probably have to clean up a little bit of a mess. So we're going to put our resin on. And it's probably too much, but I'm going to pop any bubbles that I have. I'm going to take my little pointer here and I'm going to move it around a little bit. Just to fill in those cavities. being sure to pop any bubbles along the way. And hopefully it turns out. Now, like I said, this is really tricky. You have a wider spot up here on the top of the cabochon, so it's going to pull it down to some of these smaller bubbles down here. Move it up to a few of these bigger ones. I'm probably going to have to wipe some of this stuff away. So make sure you have your handy UV flashlight if you have one. And we're just going to plop that on there and see where they spread out to. And if you get bubbles like that one there, you're going to have to do it again. So now I'm going to take my flash. No, I don't want to do it with my hand. Pop any bubbles that are left on the surface here. And let's just add some more resin. And hopefully not get any more bubbles. And there's a bubble right there. Come on. Trying not to make a mess, but it's, like I said, very tricky. Put it on, maybe at an angle. God dang it. Alright, if we can get the bubbles to push out the side, then you just hold it there. Maybe wipe away some of the excess if you can get to it. Like I said, this is a tricky process because of all the nooks and crannies that you need to fill in. I'm just wiping away all the excess that I can, and I'm pressing down pretty hard. I'm holding that there. Because if I lift up, we're going to get bubbles. So I'm just holding it there, wiping away what I can, and I'm going to grab my UV flashlight and just give this a quick cure to hold it in place. And if you start to lift your hand, you might start to get bubbles. So I'm going to just hold it until I think it's cured enough to put under the lamp. And I've seen a bubble right trying to form right there. Alright, so we're going to put this under the light for 3 minutes. Actually, yeah, 3 minutes. Okay, so it's all cured. And that's what we have so far. Now, we do need to cut this out, and a lot of people ask me why I dip some of the stuff that I do. Mostly because of all the imperfections that happen when you're doing stuff like this. But because when you do stuff like this, you do have to cut it out. You get sharp edges. You need to sand all that down, smooth it out, and then re-dip it. And I will show you the dipping process today. But right now, I'm going to show you how to cut this out. So some of these might have some thicker edges if you didn't get it cleared out as well as you thought you would. So cutting this might be a little difficult for some areas. And try to get it as close to the cabochon as possible. Okay, so I cut it out, and as you can see, you got all this edge here. We need to sand that down. Now you can use sandpaper. I will use a Dremel, and I'm not going to show you that process today. I showed you that in one of my previous videos, so I will be back after I've sanded the whole thing down. Okay, so we're going to get ready for dipping, and to do that we need to add our dipping aid. So first off, I'm going to grab some UV resin, high viscosity, and I'm just going to place a little bit on the mat here because I don't like big blobs on the back. Now you can paint your back if you want. I'm not going to paint it today. I'm just going to grab a little bit of resin here and just add a little drop, and then I'm going to grab another scoop and ball it up on the end and cure that. Okay, so that should be cured. Now we are going to dip it in our resin. So today I'm using UV dip resin. This is from Fun Showcase. It's UV, not sure what that says. Anyway, it's UV resin. It's just thicker stuff for dipping. It's really high viscosity. All right, so here we are. Now I'm going to dip it, and then I'm going to show you what I do while I'm dipping it. So here we go. So when you're dipping it, make sure to cover the whole thing. Now with doing a CD or any type of transfer like that, you will tend to get some bubbles. So what I do, I just grab my flashlight and I pop them, or my torch, I mean. Pop them. And so I just let this drip and drip and drip. So I will speed this up so the dripping doesn't seem so long for you. So like I said, with the transfers like this, you tend to possibly get bubbles between the CD and the cabochon. So when you're dipping or when you're curing, when you're dipping, you should watch the sides to make sure any bubbles forming underneath between the two. And if you do, you make sure you pop them. So I'm coming to my last drip, so I'm going to let it drip one more time. And then I'm going to flip it over. So now I flipped it over and I'm just going to let it run a little bit the other way. Move that out of the way. And I'm going to grab my UV flashlight. I'm going to zoom you out here a bit. I grab my UV flashlight and just cure that. And you can spin it in your hands. This tends to roll up in my gloves here, so, but yeah, you can spin it around and just cure it this way. And I tend to give it a good solid minute to cure. I mean, you can test after your 1 minute, you can test and make sure, because you'll be able to tell once you touch it. If it's sticky, it's not cured. Okay, for the next step, we want to take our toothpick off of there. And I got my trusty little cutters. And I'm just going to come from this side of the angle and just cut that right off of there. I tend to use my toothpicks twice. So I use one end for this, and then when I do another one, I use the other end, and then I just throw it away. So we can take this, take our little Dremel, and just sand that down. Take a napkin and wipe that off. And here's the final results. See, I got a bubble in there, but it is a bubble effect, but I like the CD effect, the glow that it gives behind it. I didn't have to put anything on the back because there is a solid white back. What do you think? Well, thank you for watching, and happy pouring.